not the R. The R stands for Renaat, and the S
It's for Sabine, yeah.
stands for Sabine. And that's probably one of the most successful partnerships in not just in dance music, in any kind of music, I guess. So how did that come about, and how did that work? How did the working relationship?
I mean, I think very, very natural, because Sabine is also a music fan, obviously. Otherwise, we wouldn't be together for 4 years and working together. So she took the administration, and we were learning whilst we were going, because at the beginning we didn't know what we were doing.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Okay, so right, you make some big mistakes. I guess everybody.
I still make mistakes.
Yeah,
of course.
Okay.
And I'm not afraid of making them.
Yeah.
I mean.
So then, like things. I mean, you know, from the glory days, but things really kind of took off with the kind of you pioneered the Belgian techno sound for one of the.
I think that's totally wrong. I
Okay.
think we pioneered worldwide electronic, because the first one, you know, you had this. I think we were, probably the first or the third label in the entire planet, because if you see Warp, Ninja, they all came after, and all those independents. So you had Chicago, and then you had New York with the New Groove, and those sort of house labels.
Because you were before most of.
Yeah, and my dream was always to import that music. So the moment we released probably the most iconic techno track, which is still played today, is Energy Flash by Joey Beltram, which really changed everything.
Yeah.
So I think we championed in international acts, because after that Derek came, just name him, the whole history.
Yeah.
First Prodigy record, I mean.
You released the first Prodigy record?
The very, very first, yeah.
Really? I should know that as Mixmag's global.
Exactly,
right,
but all those guys, because there was not really a platform, and we were going, and thanks to Newbeat and this club, that music, from Newbeat in started to have a platform, and then of course the second one was Germany, Sven Fate, Omen, and what was this big club under the airport? I forget the name now.
So, and it was an incredibly exciting time, and we were talking about in the green room about what it wasn't just entertainment; it had a wider cultural, political, and I guess a kind of freshness about it. I think it's strange that not strange, but why do you think kind of Belgium got it before lots of other places, or why you kind of led the way? Like, they got it before Berlin, I know it's pre the wall falling down, etc. But Belgium seemed to be really kind of ahead of the curve.
We have an old history in Belgium of playing a lot of electronic music, and Klaus Schulze was played. You couldn't hear that in any club in the entire world. I'm talking even before '83. Right. So we have this heritage of electronic music in clubs. Of course, when it all changed, and I still see, a lot of English guys and colleagues from England in that club, and then the whole rave scene started. Thatcher, the
Criminal Justice Act,
Criminal Justice, and then rave exploded in England, and then for me it became extremely, extremely interesting. Then it was where I was like, wow.
Yeah. So did you were involved? You would go to.
I was at the first Love Parade and the first rave ever in history. So
wow. Okay. And you were DJing as well?
No, that time I was. When I did the record company, I told myself not to DJ. The artists were more important. I wouldn't use artists on the label to boost me as a profile. Okay. I was working behind them, and that was it. Now I'm old enough, so now I can DJ because it's like a joke. It's the old man playing some records. I have nothing to prove anymore. But at that time, that was the policy. No. It was all for the artist.
So can I be a little bit fanboy at the moment, just about some kind of certain. So you talked about Energy Flash, which is obviously such a massively influential record. I just for my own for my own pleasure, I'd just like to talk about kind of how some of those records were made, because they had effect on me, and obviously so many other people. So Energy Flash, for example, because Joey Beltram was obviously based in New York.
He was based in New York, and I did find a white label, Live and Direct by Joey. So I called. This is how it went in the old days. There was still faxes and phones.
Right.
And so I called Joey. fly over to Belgium. So I had a little studio. So he flew, I brought him over. Actually, the first notes of Energy Flash were made in my apartment. Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow. He flew over, he finished it. And actually 3 days later, he made even a stronger track, which, you know, was the beginning of hardcore, which was Mentasm.
Yes.
That track was insane. And it's very hard to put yourself back in time, but those records were so not in tune of time, if you know what I mean. They were different.
And so you had a studio, like it was
studio.
almost like you know, you had a little production kind of family production.
I had a little
setup.
apartment of 20 square meter, and half of it was the studio. So we lived there 10 years, Sabine and I, with Artie sleeping in sleep bags. So we didn't have any privacy around the clock. There were
Right, and there were people.
non-stop. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you about a few more records. So, Dominator by Human Resources, obviously an enormous. I mean, that was sort of defined the rave era, particularly in the UK for many people.
That's a very interesting story because Mentasm was such a big hit, you know, all over Europe. It was so powerful that like 3 weeks later, Dominator came, which was like a sort of rip-off of Mentasm. And no, really, for me anyway,
Okay.
that's the person I say. And I was so pissed off, I said, oh, there we go again. So I called the guys, listen, or I'm blocking this record or I'm going to release it. So say, here, you have it. Because I knew it was a big hit. But anyway, that's the real story.
That's okay. And how many, like, what sort of, just to give people an idea of the scale, I mean, how many records were, it was 12-inch, like, mainly, right? I mean, how many 12 inches were you selling kind of at the peak?
We sold 1 million and 1.5 million a year.
Wow.
Overall.
Overall. So, like, so...
But we were releasing 12 inches a day nearly.
Right, okay. And then you would do compilations. You were quite creative with a lot of your album artwork and
all those things, yeah.
How did the again, it's like how did sort of A&R work as well back in those days? I mean, we have all of these discussions, you know, during this week about, you know, trolling the internet and how you can't stumble across new bands. And I think especially for some of the younger kind of delegates, you know, the world where faxes and telephones and stuff like that is so alien. I'd be interested to know how, you know, how did the A&R process work? You know, how did you find all of these new acts?
I mean, there were not many labels, so most of the guys came to us, and of course, you know, in the studio we were making our own tracks. So
yeah,
I mean, there was no competition. Nearly nothing.
So you'd literally just be sent demos?
Non-stop.
Right, okay. Did you used to go and travel to America and stuff like that? You didn't?
I went everywhere. That's why I don't have kids.
Right.
Not really, that's serious, because I wasn't home. So not only did I listen home to new tracks, you know, I was going to all the parties, watching the DJs, watching the acts. You know, I can't remember the first gig of Underworld, the first gig of Prodigy. The very first gig of Aphex Twin was fucking massive. Wow,
tell us about that.
That was, you know, actually on that gig he was, how you say, electrocuted?
I'm sorry?
Electrocuted? He had an electric shock, you know, had all this analog stuff, weird, you know.
Was this in London or?
No, it was in Berlin. Not in. Yeah, it was in Berlin.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
One of the big raves there, and with CJ and Richard, you know, sitting on the floor with all his, you know, gear, and yeah, and then he had to stop. It was like bang.
Oh, because he can't.
No, because all that old shit and the wirements, and it was so primitive. It was, I mean, incredible.
And then obviously you released several Aphex Twin records, right?
Two albums.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all of the...
I mean, the historical Still Today, which is, I think, a blueprint. Actually, it's basically 2 blueprints, but Selected Ambient Works is so beautiful. Even today, it sounds like it's made yesterday.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. And so, and then, I mean, you... it says in the... to read the notes... It says that you were flying around in private jets and Ferraris before most people even knew they existed. So what was there quite a bit of excess as well that went with with your success, or was that just I don't,
It had nothing to do with that. I wanted to be quick.
right? Okay, just to get across and come back.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because I
okay.
had a studio to run too. So
Right.
I wanted to. Now you have Eurostar to go to London, but I had a. But I was a friend of the family, so don't get me wrong. So
Right.
he had a plane, so he flew me where I wanted to be.
And tell us about was it Techno Island, which is
Yeah,
tell the good folks about that, because that's quite an interesting
that
concept.
was a shithole with with a lot of gear. Actually, that was a nightmare because then I bought more equipment and that studio was, filled with equipment till the ceiling. And we gave guys from all over the world, here you have a studio, do whatever you want, and nothing really came out because they had too much time and too much gear.
Right.
It was like, I mean, and then I sold the studio. I was bored with it.
Right. I mean, I love I love the idea of this little factory or kind of farm of talent, coming in and you looking after them and then them getting to.
It was non-stop. Sabine was cooking for them. The only guys that didn't, the only place where they didn't sleep was in my bedroom. For the rest, in the baths, everywhere. I mean,
Right.
it's ridiculous.
So you decide, like you say, you got bored and you decided to wind things down.
Mm-hmm.
Is it in 2000, around about early?
97.
97,
I was
okay.
really bored with the whole scene. The music was on repeat. Maybe I had an overdose. I don't know.
Yeah, you just okay. And then you
and too much staff. We worked with 30 people or something.
Okay, right.
And and anyway, I think first the music was getting. I was bored with the music. There was nothing fresh anymore. And also, working with a lot of staff, you come into your office and then you think, do I work for me or do I have to work for the staff? And then you start releasing stupid records, for to get a turnover to pay everybody. And a certain day I came in, guys, it's not me, I'm gonna stop. I'm
Right.
lying to myself. So here's a check by. I'm gonna
And that
breed
was it.
horses.
Yeah, then you opened a stud farm, right?
Yeah,
With
I bought the first tractor. But with wheels. No, that's I mean, that's a cheap joke. But yeah, it was very nice. Living in nature. I didn't listen to music for 6 years. And it was nice. It was really, really cool.
And then in, I think, was it 2006?
2006, yeah, because I didn't listen to the radio. And I remember we were driving, I don't know, somewhere to the horses. The radio was on. And then I heard the first, pre-dubstep. So I'm not talking about Skrillex and those guys because they came later. That's another mutation. And actually Mala, I don't know if you know Mala.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Mala, I went to those parties and I was like, wow. I mean, again, something new, something totally new. Then,
Yeah.
something fresh is happening. And I was sold again. I was back in. I sold the horses, and I told Sabine, we're going back to.
We're getting the band back together.
Yeah, we're going to go back to the madness.
So that's really okay. So that's interesting. So it was literally a new style of music.
It was
Inspired you to go, right? That's it. I want to do this again.
I'm a junkie. I need to be inspired by new things. Maybe I'm an old punk, although I miss the punk scene. But I like a little bit of attitude because if everything is the same and all the parties are the same and all the flyers are the same from here to New Zealand and back, then I need that feeling where it's cooking, where the place is on fire.
And you've had, I mean, obviously your one of your was it your first signing or your very early was James Blake?
James Blake, yeah.
Which
And
obviously
that's post dubstep already.
yeah, which was an incredible success, and also I kind of well, there's definitely a lineage, isn't there, between the old sound and new, but a lot of people on the face of it, it seems like quite a departure from the original incarnation of RNS. So
Yeah, I want it to be eclectic. I want it to be a label because it's quite easy to release, whatever, everyday drum and bass tracks, everyday tech house track. It's easy. I mean, I can do it whilst I'm sleeping. Just go out. But to find those guys with which I call with the X Factor and James Blake, see him now. He's a world star.
course.
is I don't know. They guys like this. Burial is another example.
Yes.
You know, he triggered me very much. So I can only speak for myself. So you don't have to agree with me. But you know, if I see triggers, you know, when it all started, and people that really changed to what we have today, of course, you know, you go back because we all think we invented techno, which is nonsense. You know, it's Kraftwerk and all those guys, even Vangelis, and this is where it all came from. But of course, house guys, but I'm not really, you know, too specialized. But I would say Derek May changed it, then Aphex Twin changed it, Burial changed it later on. James Blake, you know, gave hope to a complete new generation, you know, Mount Kimby, all those bands. So this is what I really, really love.
Yeah.
And you don't know. It takes you hard. You take a risk, and you have no idea where it's gonna end or what the feedback, how the feedback will come back to you. But this is me. This is what I do.
Yeah. And so tell us about what's happening with the label now, because it's Thrive. James Blake, you have released records by Tale of Us.
Well, Tale of Us is later, but Paula Temple, you know, when techno was really, really at a low point, we signed Paula Temple, and to me, she's one of the best techno female artists on the planet. You know, it's very brutal, it's hybrid. You know, I mean, it's I don't know, man. It's fucking incredible. You know, I have again Niels Fram, which we also released. Non-Keen. It's one of the best live gigs I've seen in 20 years, where. Yeah. Where you go, whoa. Nicolas Schaar, who you know. I'm a really, really big fan of Nicolas Schaar. So we you know, I released the single of Nicolas. We're talking, so I hope to have him on the label when he has one contract to do it. I love this guy. I really, really admire this guy.
Yeah.
He's so talented. Only 24, you know. This kid is gonna fly. And I heard a new album because he came to my house from New York, and he, you know. And you know, I have so many, I can sit here all day, but it's a strange story because I was afraid of him. Anyway, he plays in Ghent, comes to my house, and he said, Renaat, can I play you the new album, Demos? And I'm like, yeah. So he plays me the whole thing till 7 o'clock in the morning, and he said, I want to come to RNS, so I'm biting my nails, please. I mean, you all should buy that. It's coming out in December. It is a masterpiece.
Wow, so that's happening?
The new one that's coming out on Cobalt in December, it's absolutely a masterpiece.
Wow.
It is.
So are you finding there's a little, there's repetition of, like you say, of art, you know, it obviously seems like you had a very close relationship with your artists back in the day, and
yeah, I still
and it's that's kind of that's the same ethos. They still come to the house. Sabine still cooks for them. There's still that kind of family element to it.
Yeah, very much so. I don't know where I deserved it, but there are a lot of guys that would ask my opinion, and of course I'm very flattered. You know, whatever that opinion is worth. You know, who am I? I mean, I'm just this old guy from a little city somewhere in Belgium. Wow. But yeah, it's flattering. Even I came to Ibiza the first time in my life last year.
Really?
Ever.
Wow.
I never wanted to come here. You know, it was like, oh no way. You know,
That's interesting, because that was one of my emergency question was, so do you have any Ibiza stories?
Well, from last year.
Yeah, from last year.
You know, I did. I was here 10 days, so I did 20 years.
Yeah, 20
years in one go. Definitely.
And what did you think of it then? I guess because you must have.
I really enjoyed myself. I didn't sleep for 4 days. Okay, a power nap in between. The kids were taking me because I had youngsters with me, and they were all falling down. Yeah, I'm tired. Let's go to the hotel. And they were like, no, where is the next one? Yeah. And I was off. So I'm still passionate, even at my age. I really like it. But what I wanted to say is that it's very strange because I go behind the booth, and when DJs know I'm there, their set changed. They're looking at me. Right. And like, it's even scary.
Yeah.
Do your thing. But I will also be very arrogant, and if I don't like it, I will tell them, yeah, Renaat, do you like it? I say, shit. Really?
Well, you know. So it gets strange. What they change the set, they make it weirder, or they start playing RNS records, or a bit of both.
They don't have to play RNS records. I couldn't care less.
Yeah. I'm just wondering what they do, though. I'm wondering in what way it kind of changes, or I guess they're just
nowadays, you know, DJs are booked for a certain expectation. You know, we don't have to lie. It's a big industry, and it's normal. You know, maybe I used the wrong word. My English is not perfect, but the typecast. This is what they do. This is what you deliver.
Yeah. Pigeonholed.
Yeah.
Same.
And when I'm there next to a DJ booth, you see him digging. You see him, you know, I'm gonna play for the old man. You see them working.
Yeah.
And the records come out, which I don't think. Well, I've seen some guys a couple of times, even when they didn't know I was there, and they dig. They really dig deeper.
Mm. And so, how we spoke briefly about how things are different. You know, how things are different now from they were, you know, back in the kind of 80s and 90s. You have quite a few strong opinions on that when we were talking. Yeah,
yeah. Well, of course, I have opinions, but nobody is interested in my.
I think we got plenty. There's a few people.
My opinions, yeah. I mean, I find it. First, I started. I think musically, production has become much better. I mean, since 2006, you know, go back to Flying Lotus. You know, there was a strong Los Angeles scene, which was creatively and sound-wise, and it was so spectacular. Yeah, James, there's another one, Burial. So the production level went up, whilst when we started, it was very primitive. Mm-hmm. Nobody knew what they were doing. There was, you know, a 303, 909, whatever, and that was it. You had acid.
Yeah.
But for me, I've been there, I've done it, and yeah. Anyway, other question. Otherwise, I go too deep and.
You're being guarded now.
No, I'm a nerd. I'm critical. I'm extremely critical, because the reason why I started playing at my age is to show like how easy it is. You know how difficult it is to play records. Come on, let's be serious. It's not rocket science, right?
Yeah.
And not many people will agree. So I'm 59. Play this record. Whatever. I mean, if you're into music and you know a little bit about dance culture, fine, you get the crowd rocking. It becomes much more complicated when you see Nicolas Jarre doing a set. Then you go through a whole voyage, and from the first note to the last note, you're captured. And I've seen him playing for 5,000 kids going wild. And to be very honest, this is also one of the few DJs, and it started with Mind Against and Tale of Us. That might sound very strange, because for RNS that could have been considered extremely commercial, and we really had a lot of criticism on that. But those guys, whilst giving the people what they want, they are extremely musical, and the way they how can I say, the way they compose is so fine-tuned and so beautiful. And you can, if you watch and listen, you can think it's very easy, but it ain't easy. I mean, you need skills, you need musical skills to do that, and it's something I really love.
Okay, I think we're almost out of time. Do we do questions, or we got any questions from the floor quickly? This gentleman here, the jacket.
Hi, Renaat. Question for you. You mentioned at the top of the conversation that you've made a lot of mistakes. Repeated again and again. You're an old timer in this business. You obviously are a tastemaker. The question that I have for you is, can you share with us some of maybe one or two mistakes that you made that made a switch in your brain that said, maybe I need to rethink either my life or what I'm doing, how I'm working with my artistry. Just, I'd really like to hear maybe.
Where do I start?
Yeah, thank you.
I have no idea where to start. I think, I'm not going to give you an example, but I think mistakes are important to progress. So for me, whatever I do, and I would go on automatic pilot, my life for myself would become very dangerous and not really boring, and boring. So the mistakes were nice too. Maybe, I don't know. Jesus Christ, I have to write The Renaat mistake book. I mean, that's an idea. I don't know. I mean, not paying enough attention to some of the artists, maybe. To take it for granted, which I would do much more now. You know, artists like you to be there, you know, if they have a live performance, but then again, you cannot be everywhere. So that's a little one. And all the rest is for the documentary, because I made heavy mistakes. But I don't regret them.
Okay, good question. Any more questions from the floor? One more? No? Okay, well in that case, Renaat, an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much.
Next time.
The legend.
Bye-bye.